Hello, you're watching Oki's tutorial on how to make a traditional Zouk beat using Ableton Live. So our example here, you may be wondering what a traditional or more traditional Zouk beat sounds like. I have an example right here. Alright, so now that we kind of established that, there's lots of ways to make beats in Ableton. And these concepts can apply to any other DAW or digital audio workstation. Ableton just happens to be my preferred tool. Now what I already have pulled up here are sampler instruments. Some people like to use the drum rack instrument, where you would just maybe pull this over onto here, drag and drop it, and then it'll have like a little drum rack where it has samples loaded. I don't really have a particular reason why I like to use sampler, other than it's just the way that I learned. But either would work. So take here, this, I'll just use this first one as kind of like my kick, and we can overlay it. We'll just overlay it on top of the beat that we're going to kind of copy a little bit. I will line it up a little better so we can kind of A/B it as we go. There we go. So I already, before I started recording this, made the tempo. This tempo, I tapped it out using a metronome app on my phone. It's at 88 BPM, or if you want to double it, 176 BPM. I guess one would be half time, one would be double time, or normal time. So I'm gonna lay out the doom, or the bass drum first. It's the first sound we see here that takes up the entire frequency spectrum. So we can listen to what this one sounds like. All right. So the most important thing to be aware of when making beats like this is knowing how important your sample selection is. It's super important. One of the most important things, and maybe that's not obvious, but I just want to emphasize it. So I'll just type in kick here, see what kind of kicks we got. We can use this one. This one's okay. Alright. So C3 down here on the piano roll is generally the middle, or if you put a MIDI note there, it's going to play at the pitch that the sample is originally recorded at. So if we kind of look, you can almost see where each kick is hitting. It's more or less just hitting on the downbeats. So if we duplicate this guy, sound like this. Okay. Just gonna loop this section. Okay, so we've established our kick on every beat. So those can kind of be our dooms. Now you'll notice that there's a hit right here before the next downbeat occurs. That sounds like this. This is kind of like a snare sound almost. So I'm going to create a MIDI clip and I'm going to put it right over where that is laying. Now you notice it doesn't happen again over here. I'm just comparing my MIDI notes that I'm drawing to the waveforms in the beat that we're trying to copy. I'll make these a little shorter so you can see kind of where it's happening. You can see there's another hit here. Let's see what that sounds like. So it sounds like they're kind of the same sample. So what I'm gonna do, get rid of that guy. Let's kind of make sure that it's happening throughout. It does appear that it is pretty consistent. Now I'm pulling these MIDI notes back on the kick drum sample just so you can kind of clearly see that when this snare is going to be hitting, there's no kick happening. Now the distance of this doesn't mean that the sample is going to be playing for that amount of time necessarily. I mean, the sample itself, the kick drum sample, is pretty short. So as long as you have MIDI drawn out for the length of how long the sample would be, you'll be fine. I mean, the sample is pretty short, so I could shorten these MIDI notes to be probably this short. Well, not this one, but the rest of them. This one's too short. And it would play the whole sample, but I just want it to be, I guess, clear that this is a new sound happening. So let's find a snare really quick. I don't mind that one. Let's see what it sounds like. It's not what we want. Make sure this is all good to go. I'm just deleting some automations there. Not important. Okay, so that sounding closer. Okay, so it also sounds like he's doing this one. It sounds like there's a snare sample happening here too. So let's just draw another snare sample on top of the kick. And that sounds, I think that's gonna carry over pretty consistently. Beautiful. So let's see if we can pick out some more things here. Alright, so there's also seems to be some cymbals happening very lightly over a couple of these. Actually, sounds like it's happening with the snare. So if we just double this, we can just replace the snare sound with a cymbal of some kind. or a hi-hat actually is probably what we want. This is fine. You may want to find a different, or we may want to find a different snare sample, because this one in the track we're kind of copying. It's almost like a rim shot. So like a rim shot. Guess there's no rim shots. I mean, I know there is. Okay, let's go down. Just hit the snare again. I mean, it's like closer. We can try this, see what it sounds like. It's a little closer. A little loud, so I'll turn it down. And generally what I do is also bus everything to a drum bus. So what that means is I take all of these, I take all the audio coming out of them and run it through an empty audio channel. So I solo this one. Looks like I forgot to get these other ones. So now, and then when it comes to like the mixing part of it, which we won't really talk a whole lot about today, you would add a compressor. Do lots of fun stuff with this. Okay, so there's also a fill that happens here in this sample. It's a pretty easy thing to come up with. It's a clap. So if we go to claps. Ooh. I do know that there are other claps that are available. I don't know. Let's see here. Let's use some 808 claps. Seems like it would be fine. Just gonna duplicate this really quick. Delete the stuff before where the fill would be. Let's see. And duplicate that. Now I'm still lining this up. I can kind of see where these clap hits are happening. 1, 2, and then there's one happening here. Let's see. Okay, so that seems about right. There might be another one here. I mean, you can always get kind of crazy and do some panning. Kind of fun, kind of wacky. Makes it a little more interesting to listen to. So let's listen to our beat so far. There's a lot of different techniques you can do to spice something like this up, even at this point. One would be like adding a simple delay to your snare, and then turning the timing down so it's like just delayed by milliseconds. Gives it a little more interesting flavor. Throw like a little limiter on the kick to make it a little louder. If we really want to be diligent, we can cut the low end off of the other samples, like the snare and the hat. That kind of information would conflict with the kick drum. Next, what you could do, if you wanted, be to add a progression to it. I mean, right now this has our sample has a guitar. Also has like a drone, that me. So that kind of thing is pretty easy too. Let's see if we go to instruments. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I don't want strings. We can just try this and see what it sounds like, huh? As far as the guitar sample is concerned, I'm not going to dive that deep right now, but as you can see, we kind of just have a simple Zouk beat. Let me play it for you one more time. We have a nice fill here. Yeah, and that's how you would make a traditional Zouk beat. Thanks for watching.